Hey, insomniac elite and accidental tourists. Tonight we're sneaking into the Pentagon's sub-basement, a place so secret, even the cobwebs need a security clearance. Picture a hallway lit like a 24-hour DMV staffed by vampires. The coffee's been brewing since the Korean War, the floor wax could host Olympic curling, and every squeak of your sneakers sounds like a mouse on a first date. Honestly, you'd last longer in a shark aquarium wearing bacon cologne. Survival rating: 1 star, awarded only because 0 stars requires paperwork. If you're enjoying this rare tour of almost Armageddon, tap that like button like it's a missile launch key, gently with regret. Subscribe too, but only if your bedtime standards are as low as mine. Before we descend, drop your coordinates in the comments: city, time zone, and current level of existential dread, 110. Okay, dim the lights, cue the fan for some tasteful white noise jazz, and let's tiptoe into history's deleted scenes. Try not to leave footprints. The linoleum bruises easily. You are the night clerk in the Pentagon's sub-basement, the one even the janitors pretend doesn't exist. The clock above the cipher safe has given up on numbers. Its hands spin so slowly they might be stirring cream into cosmic coffee. Your job is to log every memo that slides out of the pneumatic tube, stamp it with a date that feels fictional, and file it in a drawer that sighs every time it closes. Tonight the tube hisses like a sleepy cat and delivers a manila envelope marked "Eyes Only, Luna." The adhesive tastes faintly of butterscotch when you lick it open, an accidental perk of Cold War glue. Inside, a single photograph of the moon flipped upside down so its craters look like surprised eyebrows, and a note typed on onion skin paper: consider kinetic demonstration on lunar surface. Retrieve feasibility by dawn. You imagine the moon itself blinking in the sky, unaware it's just been invited to a very one-sided duel. Your swivel chair utters a baritone groan as you settle in, the way old furniture apologizes for still existing. Fluorescent bulbs hum a lullaby in B-. Somewhere overhead, the world's most powerful military dozes in its starched pajamas, but down here it's just you, the smell of carbon paper, and a growing suspicion that history might be about to hire you as an extra. You picture yourself years from now, grandkids on your lap. Tell us about the great lunar photo shoot, Grandpa. You'll shrug, offer them a butterscotch, and change the subject to something safer, like the time the vending machine gave 2 candy bars for the price of 1, the greatest victory anyone in this corridor ever tasted. Still, duty tugs. You tug back, mostly by straightening the stack of incoming nonsense. The moon memo, though, refuses to flatten. Its edges curl like a secret wanting a hug. You consider coffee, but the pot upstairs brewed sometime during the Korean War and has achieved the viscosity of driveway sealant. Instead, you breathe through your mouth, tasting dust and the faint metal zing of microfilm. A second envelope plops into the tray. This one contains a requisition for one nuclear device, yield negotiable, destination, Earth's natural satellite. The typist must have been giggling. There's a smudge that could only come from a smirk. You picture some general dictating this with the same gravity he might order breakfast. I'll have the pancakes, side of existential dread, and let's blow up the moon to impress the Soviets. You stamp both documents with tomorrow's date, because tonight feels too soon, and slide them into the extremely peculiar folder, a label you hand-lettered during a previous career low. The folder is already pregnant with earlier oddities, proposals to weaponize hurricanes, to paint the Arctic white for better reflectivity, to train pigeons to pilot missiles. Someone actually approved that one. But the moon idea glows hotter, a tiny sun trapped in cardboard. You can almost feel it irradiating the filing cabinet, turning the metal warm as fresh laundry. Outside your cubicle, the corridor stretches longer than geometry remembers, lined with identical doors that never quite latch. Each breath of conditioned air tastes recycled from Eisenhower's size. You stand, knees crackling like a campfire nobody asked for, and walk, because suddenly walking seems safer than sitting still while destinies ferment. Your reflection in the dark office window looks translucent, a ghost wearing a tie that might have been fashionable during the invention of the tie. Beyond the glass, the real moon hangs low, a silver coin slipped into the night's pocket. It looks smug, like it already knows how this ends. You offer it a tiny wave, more polite than friendly, and whisper, "You and I have paperwork to do." The elevator to the basement is older than most countries. Its brass gate yawns like a bored cathedral door and shuts with the delicate clink of distant coins falling into a collection plate. You step inside, shoes now mercifully silent on the diamond plate floor, and press B4 even though the panel only shows B3. The button appears because you believe in it. That's how deep floors work in this building. A faint scent of gunmetal and forgotten choir music rides the air. Somewhere above, someone is probably humming Moonlight Serenade. But down here, the only tune is the cable's low groan, a bass note you feel in your molars. Down you sink, past the layer where they store spare wars, past the cafeteria freezer labeled emergency ice cream. Break glass only if civilization ends. The bulb overhead flickers Morse code you almost remember from Boy Scouts, something about keep calm and bring snacks. Your own reflection stares back from the polished panel, eyes ringed with fluorescent halos, tie now loosened to casual apocalypse setting. You practice the line you'll offer if anyone asks why you're heading to sub-basement lunatic, just returning the moon's phone call. The elevator sighs to a stop a full inch shy of the floor, as if it can't be bothered to commit. You hop the gap, landing on linoleum so waxed it could double as a skating rink for exceptionally well-behaved ants. The corridor ahead glows a sickly cream, the color of paper left in windows too long. Every 10 paces a security camera blinks like a drowsy firefly, too tired to rat you out. Halfway to the briefing room, you pass a water fountain that has been running since 1958. It gurgles a lullaby in the key of lukewarm. You cup a handful, taste iron and the faintest echo of hydrogen, the flavor of secrets kept too long. A plaque on the wall reads, "Silence is security," and also cheaper than soundproofing. You wipe your hands on your slacks, leaving dark constellations that will dry into the shape of whatever tomorrow regrets. At the final corner you pause, partly because the air feels thicker here, partly because your shoes have finally realized they're in over their heads. From beyond the door comes a soft, mechanical shuffling. Projector reels, maybe, or someone dealing cards made of microfilm. You straighten your shoulders, rehearse a casual nod, and push inside. The room is round, walls curved like the inside of a coffee can, painted that shade of institutional green that exists nowhere in nature, except possibly in the nightmares of pistachios. A single overhead lamp pools light onto a conference table fashioned from a repurposed bomber wing. The metal still bears rivets, and if you look closely, a tiny dent labeled "Flak," compliments of the Luftwaffe. 5 chairs, 3 occupied. No one looks up. They're too busy studying the moon, upside down again, projected huge on the far wall. Its craters now resemble surprised eye sockets, as if the man in the moon just realized he's been subpoenaed. You clear your throat softly, the way librarians do when they'd rather not haunt anyone. A woman with a clipboard, hair pulled so tight it might be classified, gestures to the empty seat nearest the projector's beam. You sit, and immediately your torso becomes part of the lunar landscape. Your tie is a dark river flowing across the sea of tranquility. No one smiles, but the man to your left offers a nod so small it could fit inside a wristwatch. His badge reads Theoretical Effects, which sounds like a band that only plays at funerals for ideas. The projector clicks, advances, and a new slide appears, a cartoon missile wearing a cowboy hat, jauntily orbiting a grapefruit labeled moon. Someone has penciled a speech bubble. Howdy, partner, mind if I crater? The absurdity lands somewhere between giggle and gulp. You feel the room decide, collectively, that laughter is a luxury none of us can afford tonight. So the silence settles, soft as moon dust, and you wait for whoever speaks first to plant a flag in this quiet. The projector exhales a sigh warm enough to toast the tiny hairs on your forearms, and the upside-down moon ripples, as if it's considering a polite bow. A man at the head of the table, tie the color of midnight bureaucracy, taps a pointer against the crater that is currently occupying your sternum. Gentlefolk, he begins, voice the texture of velvet stored too long in a cedar drawer. Welcome to Project A119, also known unofficially as a study in lunar redecoration. He allows himself half a chuckle, the kind that dies alone in an elevator. You notice the corners of the room are missing. The walls curve upward into darkness, giving the impression you're sitting inside a coffee can that dreams of becoming a planetarium. The air tastes faintly of overheated celluloid and the ghost of someone's tuna salad lunch. A ceiling vent exhales every 7 seconds, precisely the rhythm of a sleeping dog, though there are no dogs here. Only 5 primates and 1 celestial body in existential trouble. The woman with the clipboard clicks her pen, one sharp snap like a lunar module docking, and slides a mimeographed packet toward you. The cover reads Contingency, High-Altitude Fireworks, in courier font so classified it refuses to exist in most typewriters. Inside are pages of orbital mechanics written in the tender dialect of people who trust numbers more than daylight. You skim. Yield 1.7 kilotons, visibility from Earth, psychological shock value. Your brain translates, we're going to shoot the moon in the face and hope the bruise impresses the Russians. Mid-page, a tiny footnote catches your eye. Potential for lunar dust injection into translunar space. Duration of enhanced sunset colors, approx. 10 minutes. Someone has penciled in the margin, pretty, followed by a frowny face, as if beauty and terror have agreed to share a desk. You picture civilians in lawn chairs, sipping lemonade while radioactive twilight streaks across the sky. An advertising slogan writes itself. Come for the geopolitics, stay for the pastels. Midnight bureaucracy clears his throat again, reclaiming the silence like a landlord. Our objective, he says, clicking to a slide titled Why the Moon, is threefold: scientific data, propaganda triumph, and frankly, because it's big nearby and doesn't shoot back. A ripple of relieved nods travels the table. Apparently justification tastes better when salted with honesty. He continues, detonation at lunar dawn near the Terminator line ensures maximum contrast. Think Ansel Adams meets Armageddon, but with better lighting. You raise a hand before your courage files for conscientious objection. Sir, what about? You begin, then realize you haven't decided which what about worries you most. Contamination, precedent, or the moon's feelings. He lifts an eyebrow calibrated to patronize. Contamination is negligible, he preempts. The moon's already lifeless. His tone adds like this meeting. Laughter tries to form, decides against it, and goes for coffee instead. The projector advances to a grainy photo of a crater cross, sectioned like a geological layer cake. Someone has labeled the strata. Dust, more dust, disappointment, bedrock. You're struck by how calmly the moon awaits its possible bruising, the way a sleeping cat accepts that toddlers exist. A quiet voice in your head, sounding suspiciously like your future self on a therapist's couch, whispers, "Remember this moment. You're helping aim a gun at something that never did anything but glow." Clipboard woman speaks for the first time, voice soft as moon dust brooms. "We need a volunteer to run visibility models. Someone who can stay up all night watching pretend explosions." 4 pairs of eyes swivel toward you, because apparently the new kid always inherits the imaginary craters. You nod before your nerves file an appeal, and the meeting moves on, leaving you to wonder whether the moon will forgive a crime that never quite happens. The slide rule lands in your palm with the chill of a moon rock that's been kept in the office freezer for emphasis. It's ivory white, edges beveled like an antique butter knife that gave up on dairy and switched to orbital mechanics. Engraved along its spine, property of U.S., Gov, return if found on lunar surface. You wonder how many hands have thumbed these tiny numbers before yours. Hands that measured artillery ranges, bomber wings, maybe the waist of someone they'd miss come Christmas. Clipboard woman, whose name turns out to be Dr. June, though she pronounces it like a month that's considering early retirement, guides you to a side alcove. The alcove used to be a broom closet, but the broom's unionized, and now it's the computational NUKE, complete with one humming desk fan, and a view of absolutely nothing. She hands you a fresh pad of graph paper that smells of pine pulp and possibility, then uncaps a fountain pen with the ceremony of a sommelier. "We need to know," she says, voice pitched low so the walls can't overhear, "how much dust a 6-kiloton surface burst will loft. Assume lunar regolith density 2.3 grams per cubic centimeter, particle size 10 microns to 2 millimeters. Oh, and factor in the moon's lazy gravity, 1/6 Earth." She might as well have asked you to calculate the square root of God. You slide the rule open. Its inner scales glide with a sigh that sounds like distant surf on a beach where no one vacations. The numbers line up, polite as dominoes, then scatter into scientific notation that resembles very small insects in formal wear. Multiply by mass, divide by gravity, convert to ejector volume. Your pencil scratches a lullaby only physicists could dance to. Every so often the overhead bulb flickers, offering a strobe-lit pep rally for fractions. Halfway down the page the fan hiccups, puffing warm air that smells of carbon paper and someone's aftershave named suborbital musk. You imagine each dust grain as a tiny astronaut, blasted free of the moon's dusty embrace, sailing upward in slow-motion protest. They'll arc for minutes, maybe hours, before settling back down like embarrassed confetti that forgot the parade was cancelled. You write, max altitude 180 km, and immediately picture lunar dust sprinkling onto an imaginary astronaut's helmet. He brushes it off, looks up, and winks at you for the assist. Dr. June reappears with 2 styrofoam cups of coffee, the color of classified documents. Steam curls in zero-gravity slow motion, despite Earth's relentless 9.8. She peers at your figures, nods once, an economy of approval that feels like a medal pinned to your pajamas. and scribbles her initials beside the final estimate. Total ejecta, 3.8 million cubic meters. That's enough to bury Manhattan ankle deep, or to build a brand new moon the size of a modest shopping mall. She taps the total. Remember, she murmurs, this is the part we can measure. The rest, she gestures vaguely at the ceiling, the sky, the future, is poetry for someone else to footnote. You close the slide rule, its halves kiss with a click soft as moth wings. Somewhere in the ductwork a phone rings twice, then thinks better of it. You're struck by how calm you feel, cradling a number big enough to carve a scar on the moon's cheek, yet small enough to fit in a shirt pocket. Maybe catastrophe always begins as something you can hold in one hand, like a love note or a cough. As you stand to deliver the worksheet, the fan tilts its head and exhales across your neck, the way a grandmother might say, There, it's only arithmetic. But you both know the difference between math and mayhem is sometimes just a misplaced decimal, and tonight the moon is counting on you to keep your darts in the right universe. The bar is called the Launchpad Lounge, though the only thing it's ever launched is 1,000 mumbled regrets into watered-down martinis. You push through padded leather doors that exhale cigar smoke, and the syrupy croon of a jukebox stuck on, Fly Me to the Moon. Frank Sinatra's voice stretched thin like taffy over too many late-night orbits. The neon sign behind the counter flickers between cocktails and cockpits, can't decide which lie it prefers. You claim a corner booth scarred with cigarette moons, burn rings overlapping like crater chains on a dirty tablecloth. The laminate menu advertises a drink named Atomic Sour, garnished with a radioactive green cherry that glows brighter than your future. You order something safer, a gin and tonic so mild it could teach kindergarten. Dr. June slides in across from you, trading her clipboard for a napkin. She immediately folds into a paper airplane. Apparently even leisure gets weaponized around here. While you wait, you doodle on another napkin, a lopsided moon wearing sunglasses, smoking a cigar shaped like a missile. You give it a speech bubble. You call that a bang. The ink bleeds, forming tiny lunar seas of unintended sincerity. June watches, amused. Careful, she says. Satire has a half-life. One day it's a joke, next day it's policy. She launches the paper plane. It arcs, stalls, and dive bombs into your glass, dissolving into pulp flotsam that looks suspiciously like classified confetti. You fish it out, ring it, and stuff the soggy evidence into your pocket. Another state secret headed for the laundry. The bartender, an ex-bomber pilot named Gus who still wears his flight jacket zipped to the chin despite the subtropical swamp of cigarette fog, slides your drink over. Ice cubes clink like tiny shackles for refreshment. He nods at your napkin moon. You science folks? He asks, voice gravelly enough to pave a runway. You shrug, which in government dialect means yes, but if I told you I'd have to bore you to death. He grins anyway. Just remember, the moon's a lousy backstop, big but no applause. He taps the bar and wanders off to polish glasses that will never be clean enough to see tomorrow through. June sips her martini, leaves lipstick crescents on the rim that could pass for orbital paths if you squint. Visibility windows, 72 hours, she murmurs, assuming we light the fuse at lunar dawn. Earthset at Kwajalein is 0407 Zulu, so the flash needs to pop at 0412, 5 minutes of drama while half the Pacific is still watching. She sketches the timeline on a fresh napkin, a tiny mushroom cloud timed like a souffle. You add stick figure spectators on a beach, cocktails raised in salute. One of them wears sunglasses shaped like your slide rule, Another sports a halo labeled Fallout, but make it fashion. Between doodles, you calculate rough yield to brightness ratios on the back of a coaster. The coaster advertises Miss Aaliyah's Eat Free on Tuesdays, which explains the mustard stain orbiting the edge. Numbers flow. 6 kilotons equals roughly 100 full moons of instantaneous luminosity, enough to turn night into an overzealous dusk for one surreal minute. You imagine lovers pausing mid-kiss, dogs tilting heads, astronomers weeping into star charts they'll have to recalibrate. All that fuss for a cosmic flashbulb. Say cheese, solar system. Gus drops the check face down, industry standard for deniability. You flip it. Total amounts to less than the cost of the ink your pen just bled. Outside, thunder mutters something about rain, but the jukebox drowns it out with another round of Sinatra. June stands, smoothing her skirt the way engineers smooth trajectories, small corrections for big impacts. Back to the salt flats at 0500, she says. Bring imagination, we're fresh out of funding for reality. You nod, pocket the napkin moon, and leave the launchpad lounge carrying a constellation of gin-scented crumbs. On the sidewalk, the night smells of impending storm and fried onions from a nearby diner. Overhead, the actual moon glides between clouds like a spy changing disguises. You salute with 2 fingers, the way polite burglars greet unlocked windows. Don't worry, you whisper. We're still just talking. But talking, you've learned, is the fuse that preheats the bang. The desert begins where the pavement gives up on its New Year's resolution. Asphalt thins, cracks, then sighs into sand that glitters like spilled Christmas in July. You ride shotgun in a staff car older than Sputnik, springs squealing every time the tires remember a bump. Dr. June drives, one wrist draped over the wheel, the other hand conducting an inaudible waltz with the wind rushing through the open window. Her hair has escaped its earlier bun and now scribbles across the dusk like rebellious equations. Behind you, the city's glow shrinks to a bruise on the horizon. Ahead, darkness pools so wide it could swallow dictionaries. Stars fade, not because they are dim, but because the sky is practicing modesty, dimming the house lights before the main act. You count them anyway, the way insomniacs count sheep who refuse to jump fences. Every missing star feels like a promise the moon asked for back. The road turns to gravel, then to packed earth, then to something resembling the surface of the moon itself, pale, pockmarked, indifferent to footwear. A sign whispers past, Quageline proving ground, authorized personnel, tumbleweeds, and regret only. You half expect a border guard to stamp your forehead, probably harmless. But the checkpoint is a wooden shack leaning like a drunk historian, windows dark, radio silent. June taps the horn, 2 short beeps that translate roughly to, "We're here, don't shoot." No one answers. Even the crickets are classified. You unload gear under a sky now so black it looks freshly painted, still tacky to the touch. The air smells of sage, diesel, and anticipation, an aftershave marketed exclusively to people who aim bombs at rocks millions of miles away. A single flood lamp on a portable pole hums itself awake, throwing a cone of light that attracts every moth within 3 counties. They orbit like tiny satellites, wings beating Morse code you almost remember from childhood. Stay, stay, stay. Your cot for the night is a canvas fold-up that sags in the middle like a hammock, having second thoughts. You toss your duffel, containing 1 slide rule, 2 changes of socks, and a toothbrush that's seen more countries than most passports, onto it, and the whole frame size, resigned to destiny. Nearby, A generator coughs itself alive, rumbling a lullaby in the key of diesel. Its exhaust smells like someone burning yesterday's newspapers for warmth. June produces a thermos of coffee so strong it could etch glass. You sip. Your tongue files for hazard pay. Together you walk the perimeter, boots crunching on alkali crust that sparkles under flashlight beams like low-budget diamonds. Every footstep erases someone else's yesterday. Ancient wagon ruts, lizard trails, maybe even a fossilized kiss some cowboy once pressed into the dirt. Time out here is a palimpsest, and you're the newest layer of half-truths. At the far end of the camp stands the tracking trailer, a silver bullet of aluminum cooled by night breezes that smell of distant rain which will never arrive. Inside, oscilloscopes glow green as jealous cats, their sine waves purring across screens. A technician, barely old enough to shave lunar dust, offers you headphones that hiss with cosmic background static, the universe clearing its throat before speaking. You listen. Somewhere in the white noise you swear you hear the moon turning over in its sleep, dreaming of unexploded surprises. Back outside, you tilt your head. The sky has finished dressing for the occasion. Stars reappear. Now sequins on a cape, the moon swirls behind itself. You try to locate the exact spot where tomorrow's pretend sunrise will graze the lunar south pole, but it's like searching for a single comma in a library of closed books. June nudges your elbow. Latitude -87, longitude 45, she says, as if reciting a home address. That's where we'll stitch the bruise. You nod, throat suddenly dry, and realize you left your water canteen next to the cart. No matter, thirst feels appropriate, a small penance for planning cosmic vandalism. The generator hiccups, steadies, then settles into a rhythm indistinguishable from your own pulse. You sit on the cart, boots unlaced, watching moths orbit the flood lamp like tiny mission planners debating trajectories. Somewhere in that spiral is an omen. But omens are expensive, and you're on a government per diem. You close your eyes, breathe in diesel and sage, and let the desert hum lull you toward a sleep you probably won't earn. Tomorrow you'll calculate how high dust can fly when kicked by a star-sized boot. Tonight you're just a small, warm thing under an indifferent sky, apologizing in advance to a moon that isn't listening. Yet. Dawn in the desert arrives like a memo nobody asked for, pale, crisp, and stapled to your eyelids. The horizon blushes. First mauve, then peach, colors so gentle they feel contrite about whatever happens next. You wake already sweating inside your sleeping bag, the canvas cart bowed beneath you like a parenthetical apology. Somewhere a meadowlark practices scales, stops, restarts. Apparently even birds require security clearance before trilling. You sit up, hair doing an impression of exploded regolith, and watch the camp twitch to life. Technicians emerge from trailers zipping, jumpsuits the color of institutional oatmeal. Coffee steam rises in thin columns, each one a prayer to the god of insufficient sleep. The moon, still faint in the western sky, looks like it pulled an all-nighter too, paler, smaller, as if it stayed up rehearsing startled expressions for later. Gus from the bar appears, now officially range safety liaison, badge clipped crookedly to a belt that's never met a loop it respected. He hands you a clipboard thick as a phone book and twice as accusatory. Top sheet, pre-fit checklist, missile, nuclear device morale. The morale box already contains a penciled TBD. You initial it, because false confidence is a currency that spends easier than truth out here. Breakfast is served from a chow trailer that smells of bacon, diesel, and existential dread. You accept powdered eggs shaped like yellow Lego, plus a biscuit sturdy enough to patch hull breaches. A cook in A, kiss the cook. He's radiation safe. Apron offers Tabasco labeled test sight strength. May remove paint. You drizzle, taste, feel your tongue file for workers' comp. Around you, conversations orbit the same topic. Today's dress rehearsal for a detonation that will never happen, yet must look like it might. Think of it as theater, someone says, except the audience is the entire Cold War and the critics have missiles too. Post-breakfast, you're escorted to a Quonset hut the color of dried toothpaste. Inside, racks of lead-lined coveralls hung like deflated astronauts, helmets glazed with dust, gloves thick enough to high-five a reactor. A technician measures your inseam with the solemnity of a tailor preparing wedding attire for an arranged marriage to danger. Breathing apparatus goes here, he mutters, tapping a spot between your shoulder blades. Try not to exhale until 1980. You laugh, because that's what people do when the punchline is survival, and the sound ricochets off corrugated tin, comes back thinner. Next stop, the mark-up. Engineers have built a plywood moon on a sand berm, complete with papier-mâché craters spray-painted ash gray. It looks like a middle school science fair entry that grew up to have trust issues. A miniature missile, training version, all show, no glow, lies on a rail launcher nearby. You're invited to walk the flight line, checking connections with a clipboard that grows heavier every meter. Each bolt you initial feels like signing a birthday card for someone you're about to ghost. Mid-morning, sun is already a heat lamp screwed into the sky. Sweat trickles, mapping micro-rivers across ribs. Dr. June appears holding a stopwatch and a suntan already 2 shades closer to classified copper. She gestures toward a tower of cameras, each lens aimed at the fake moon like paparazzi waiting for a celebrity meltdown. Exposure settings calibrated for 100 sun brightness, she says. If this thing ever pops, we'll capture every photon that isn't busy incinerating film. You imagine the photograph, a white bloom where the plywood moon used to be, caption reading, proof of concept, also proof we need therapy. Lunch is brown bag, mystery meat sandwich, apple polished to mirror finish, and a napkin stamped property of U.S. government, return uneaten portion. You bite the apple. It tastes like conditional love. Between chews, you rehearse your role, monitor dust plume angles, log timestamps. Try not to think about the real moon going about its monthly business unaware it's been cast in a morality play. Afternoon briefing takes place under a canvas awning that flaps like a flag negotiating surrender. A major with a mustache shaped like Cold War brinkmanship unfurls a map, the Sea of Tranquility outlined in red Sharpie, crosshair centered near a tiny X labeled Ground Zero, mostly harmless. He speaks of yield, altitude, azimuth, words that feel heavier than the desert itself. You scribble notes that will later read like love letters to annihilation. Peak brightness at T plus 0.3 sec. Ejector curtain 12 km radius. Psychological impact, priceless. As the sun tilts west, shadows grow long enough to trip over. You find yourself alone beside the plywood moon, clipboard complete, every box dutifully ticked. A breeze stirs faux regardless, scattering paper dust across your boots. Dry run for the real dust that, if schedules hold, will never rise. You crouch, touch the painted surface, cool, rough, fake. Somewhere overhead the genuine article floats, ancient and unmarked. You whisper an apology no microphone will ever pick up, stand, and walk back toward camp, boots printing temporary history into sand that will forget you by morning. The general's whispered speech begins at 1900 hours sharp, inside a Quonset hut cooled to the temperature of leftover secrets. Folding chairs creak under the weight of anticipation. Someone's thermos drips a slow, metronomic plink into the silence. You sit third row, notebook balanced on your knee like a seesaw for guilty thoughts. Overhead, a single bulb dangles, casting shadows that migrate across the corrugated walls like timid tourists. General Brigg, silver hair clipped shorter than a budget memo, steps onto a plywood crate that doubles as podium and soapbox. He doesn't clear his throat. Authority arrives pre-cleared. His voice, when it comes, is velvet laid over gravel, soft enough to lull, rough enough to scrape paint. Ladies, gentlemen, contractors of uncertain pedigree, he begins. Tonight we discuss painting the moon red. Well, white hot, actually, but the sentiment stands. A ripple of half chuckles, half shudders. He clicks a pointer. The bulb dims politely while a slide blooms on the wall, earthrise, the moon in foreground like a patient awaiting vaccination. Why? He asks, letting the question hang until it becomes a coat nobody wants. Answers shuffle through the room, because we can, because they might, because the sky is the ultimate billboard, but no one speaks them aloud. He supplies his own, because the eyes of the world are looking up, and we want them to see who's holding the flashbulb. You scribble flashbulb in quotes, as if punctuation might soften the concept. The general paces. Each footstep lands on a floorboard that squeaks like a mouse objecting to foreign policy. He outlines the scenario, dawn Terminator, maximum contrast, one instantaneous sun flowering where none should be. Imagine, he murmurs, every farmer in Kansas, every clerk in Kiev, every shepherd in Kazakhstan glancing skyward at the same impossible bloom. Imagine the conversations in languages we don't speak, concluding, correctly, that the future belongs to the bold and the heavily financed. His slideshow advances, a graph of anticipated awe index, a pie chart labeled fear, wonder envious imitation. You notice the slices don't add up to 100, possibly optimism, possibly rounding error. Another slide. A child's crayon drawing of the moon wearing a band-aid. Someone's kid somewhere already practicing trauma. The general doesn't comment. He simply lets the image glow until discomfort achieves the proper half-life. Then he lowers the lights further, voice dropping to bedtime story register. There will be no declaration, no advance trailer, just light. A silent trumpet blast visible to half the planet. And when the glow fades, the message remains. Borders end at the atmosphere, but influence travels at the speed of photons. He pauses, scans faces, landing on yours for a heartbeat too long, as if assigning personal responsibility for every future sunset that might look slightly wrong. Questions are invited. Hands rise like cautious periscopes. Someone asks about fallout, lunar, political, existential. The general smiles, small and sealed. Fallout, he repeats, tasting the word, is simply stardust that took the wrong exit. Minimal risk, maximal mythology. Another hand, what if we miss? His answer, then we crater somewhere else and call it exploration. History books are forgiving to large explosions if you footnote them with science. Laughter this time, genuine, the sound of tension leaking out like steam from a radiator that knows it's in for a long winter. He closes with logistics, timelines, radio silence, code words. You're given yours, nightlight, and instructed to repeat it only in dreams. The bulb brightens. The hut suddenly feels smaller, an overcoat buttoned too tight. Chairs scrape, people stand, but the general lingers, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the final slide, the moon restored to grayscale innocence. You file past him. As you draw even, he leans in, voice softer than classified silk. Remember, kid, every frontier needs its first scar. Make it beautiful. Outside, night air smells of diesel and distant rain that will never arrive. You breathe in, breathe out. Feel the word beautiful settle somewhere between your ribs and your conscience. Overhead, the real moon hangs low, unaware it's been cast as both canvas and casualty. You salute it with 2 fingers, apology and acceptance in one gesture, and head toward the trailer that hums with oscilloscopes and second thoughts. Somewhere inside your chest, a tiny bulb flickers, part awe, part alarm, painting everything the color of decisions that can't be unilluminated. Midnight suit fitting happens in a trailer cooled to the temperature of an accountant's handshake. Canvas walls shudder in the desert wind, sounding like someone slowly unrolling a map of second thoughts. You step onto a plywood platform that creaks under moral ambiguity. A tailor, badge reading Kowalski, radiation apparel div, waits with a tape measure draped around his neck like a stethoscope for souls. He doesn't ask your name. He already knows your chest size, inseam, and probable guilt coefficient. First comes the underlayer, cotton long johns the color of weak tea, impregnated with silver threads that itch like gossip. Think of them as long johns holding short johns accountable, Kowalski mutters, pinning a cuff. You wiggle, static crackles, tiny lightning announcing weather fronts of discomfort. Next, lead-lined trousers, heavier than a Monday morning budget meeting. You hoist them one leg at a time, feeling your vertebrae negotiate interest rates. They close with zippers big enough to dock a blimp, each pull sounding like a drawer full of secrets slamming shut. Weight's 32 pounds, he says, but on the moon that's only 5, if you decide to commute. You chuckle because that's what people do when gravity makes jokes at their expense. The jacket arrives like an armored bear hug, shoulders quilted with cadmium plates that smell faintly of old pennies and new apologies. Sleeves terminate in rabbit fur cuffs, allegedly to wipe radiation sweat from your brow, more likely to make you look like a disco yeti. A Velcro name patch is affixed. Feasibility Observer, title vague enough to fit any future apology letter. Across the back, stenciled letters read, Property USAF, return if not radioactive, as if garments routinely grow legs and wander into sunsets. Kowalski produces gloves, inner cotton, outer leaded leather, fingers so stiff you could play piano on a battleship and still miss every note. You flex, joints protest in harmonic octaves. A plastic dosimeter dangles from the left wrist, its window blank as an unwritten confession. Turn it away from the flash, he advises, unless you want it to fill up like a stampede of fireflies. You picture the little meter blackening, a night sky inside a tube, and decide to keep your wrist diplomatically rotated. Finally, the helmet, matte white with a gold-tinted visor that turns the world the color of deferred responsibility. Inside, speakers nestle near your ears, pre-tuned to the countdown net, and oddly, a soft music station that promises easy listening while the world maybe ends. You inhale. Recycled plastic smells like childhood lunchboxes and distant rain. Kowalski taps the visor, leaving a fingerprint you immediately catalog as evidence. Remember, he says, this suit won't save you from everything, just enough to fill out paperwork afterward. You descend the platform, each footfall a 38-pound exclamation mark. Walking feels like wading through a pool filled with Monday and Tuesday. Mirrors are scarce, budget cuts, so you glimpse yourself in the polished back of a metal clipboard, a marshmallow soldier drafted by geometry, shoulders squared, silhouette rounded, vaguely Michelin Man meets Fallout Boy. You try a salute. Your elbow creaks like an old floorboard confessing. Kowalski offers a final accessory, a pocket-sized card laminated in plastic. Front, silhouette of a mushroom cloud. Caption, if you can read this, you're already part of history. Please act accordingly. Back, step-by-step instructions for dignified evacuation, ending with remove suit only when safe or when fashion dictates. You slide it into your chest pocket next to your heart, which beats Morse for is this really necessary? Lights dim, fitting complete. You waddle toward the exit, suit rustling like a library of classified documents shushing itself. At the threshold, you pause, turn, attempt a joke. You have this in teal. But Kowalski is already measuring the next body, tape whispering numbers that sound like betting odds on survival. You push into night air that feels refrigerated just for you, boots leaving heel prints deep enough to plant lettuce. Overhead, the moon inspects your new silhouette, perhaps recognizing the padding of a future penitent. You offer an apologetic shrug, metallic shoulders clanking like distant train cars coupling, and head toward the assembly area where dawn is scheduled to impersonate doomsday. The countdown lullaby starts at 0300, whispered through a loudspeaker that sounds like it's nursing a sore throat. You lie in the back of a pickup truck, parka bunched under your head, eyes mapping constellations the way insomniacs count sheep that refuse to stay in line. Over the intercom, a voice, not robotic, surprisingly human, recites, T-10 hours and counting. The numbers feel soft, almost lullaby soft, each syllable a cotton ball dropped into the dark. Around you, the desert sleeps with one eye open. Generators throb a bass note steady enough to rock cradles if cradles were issued to sand. You breathe in diesel and cold stars, tasting the metallic tang of pre-dawn that coats your tongue like a promise you're not sure you'll keep. Dr. June reclines against the tailgate, helmet off, hair now completely free range, framing her face in static-induced frizz that glows faintly under the safety floodlights. She hums, off-key, slow, an unidentifiable tune that might be jazz or might be the national anthem of a country that hasn't been founded yet. You close your eyes and let the countdown settle into your pulse, 10, 9, 8, but stretched across hours, so the beats feel like waves lapping a beach made of borrowed time. Somewhere in the distance, the real missile stands on its rail, a silver pencil waiting to dot the moon's eye. You picture it napping too, fueled but drowsy, dreaming of trajectories it may never travel. Every so often a technician walks past with a flashlight, red lens glowing like a cigarette ember carried by a polite ghost. The beam sweeps across your eyelids, gentle enough to tuck you in, brief enough to let darkness return. Inside your borrowed parka, the decimeter clicks once, just housekeeping, checking that time still works. You imagine each click as a tiny librarian stamping due dates on the seconds. Your mind drifts to childhood bedtime stories, the one where the cow jumps over the moon, the one where the moon is made of green cheese, the one where the moon forgives everyone. You rewrite them on the fly. Cow becomes missile, cheese becomes plasma, forgiveness becomes a footnote in a report no one will read. The intercom voice returns, softer now, as if afraid of waking something that isn't you. T-9 hours, 30 minutes. You subtract time zones, realize dawn is still a rumor, and allow yourself a yawn big enough to swallow a constellation or two. June hears, smiles sideways. Nap if you want, she murmurs. The world will still be ending on schedule. You take the offer, letting muscles unclench one vertebra at a time. The truck bed vibrates beneath, steady, maternal, like the world's largest phone set to silent mode, buzzing only for important calls. Sleep tiptoes up, wearing slippers made of white noise. You feel yourself tipping sideways into a dream where numbers count backward of their own accord, where missiles curl like cats around the ankles of astronomers, where the moon leans close and whispers, I've survived worse." The last thing you hear before the edges blur is the intercom, almost tender, T-9 hours, 15 minutes, and thank you for flying Nightlight Airways. Darkness folds you into its envelope, seals you with the gentle lick of starlight. Somewhere inside the countdown, crickets keep their own metric, rubbing time like flint until it sparks tiny moments of maybe. You drift, buoyed by diesel heartbeats and the soft, persistent promise that every second will be there when you wake, unless, of course, it isn't. Dawn leaks across the salt flats in slow-motion sepia, like coffee spilled on a calendar nobody plans to keep. You wake to the smell of kerosene mist and something sweeter, rocket perfume, the technician's joke, an aroma halfway between hot tarmac and summer rain on fresh asphalt. It curls into your sinuses, familiar already, the way childhood kitchens linger in adult dreams. The missile stands 50 yards away, a silver needle threaded into morning sky, winking whenever sunlight finds a rivet. Frost feathers its lower flanks. The fuel inside is cold enough to make metal shiver. You approach, boots crunching crusted alkali that sounds like broken chandeliers underfoot. Each step leaves a crater you could fit a regret into. A placard at the gantry reads, "Do not touch," unless offering consolation, which feels less like a warning and more like career advice. Up close, the rocket smells stronger, a perfume ad marketed to planets who want to feel young again. You breathe it in, half expecting your lungs to sprout little tail fins. A tech in bunny-suited white hands you a clipboard labeled olfactory log, insisting you record descriptors, temperature adjacent, notes of ozone, finish of distant thunderstorm. You write smells like Tuesday deciding to be Friday, and he nods as if that's standard. They let you walk the gantry stairs, boots clanging a rhythm part mariachi, part funeral. Mid-level, you pause nose to nose with the second stage nozzle. Its interior is a cathedral of concentric rings, each one a tiny ledge where pressure and prayer perch. You exhale, condensation blooms, then vanishes, practice for the cloud that won't come. Somewhere inside, fuel lines twitch, eager as veins before the adrenaline hit. On the platform, you meet the payload shroud, white, seamless, humming faintly with conditioned air. Behind that skin sits the device, napping under blankets of insulation. You picture it dreaming in isotopes, counting sheep that glow. A sticker on the fairing reads, "Handle like eggs, very angry eggs," complete with a frowny face emoticon someone drew wearing a cowboy hat. You touch the plastic, feel nothing but cool inertness, yet your fingertips tingle as if shaking hands with tomorrow's hangover. Down on the flats, cameras cluster like paparazzi around a reclusive star. Each lens is capped with red tape that must be peeled at T-60 minutes, a striptease for optics. A technician explains the tape's purpose, keeps out dust, spiders, and second thoughts. You almost ask for a strip to stick across your own conscience, but supplies are limited. General Brigg arrives, helmet tucked under one arm, hair so silver it reflects the rocket's glare. He inhales deeply, eyes half closing in cologne commercial satisfaction. "Smell that," he says to no one and everyone. That's the scent of history putting on its war paint. You consider replying, but your vocabulary feels suddenly lightweight, like a matchstick trying to debate a bonfire. Time for your assignment. Stand at the perimeter, nose into wind, log scent intensity every 15 minutes. They issue you a stopwatch that ticks loud enough to drown second thoughts. You position yourself cross-upwind, close enough to feel the rocket's chill exhalations, far enough that your decimeter stays politely quiet. Between readings you jot marginalia, 0915, odor thickened, sky pastel, conscience medium rare. 0930, fuel top-off complete, perfume now carries hints of copper, possibly my own bloodstream. At T-2 hours, they begin the final top-off. Vapor vents from a valve, forming a white scarf that drifts across the flats before dissolving into heat shimmer. You breathe it in, feel your synapses flare like struck matches. For a moment you swear you can taste tomorrow's newspapers, ink, dread, the faint vanilla of triumph. The stopwatch clicks. You record intensity 9/10, notes of inevitability. Behind you, the loudspeaker resumes its lullaby. T-1 hour, 45 minutes. The voice sounds relaxed, almost sleepy, as if counting down to nap time rather than nonsense. You close your eyes, let rocket perfume settle on your tongue like a secret you're almost ready to keep. Somewhere inside that silver skin, molecules queue for ignition, polite as theater-goers waiting for the curtain. You inhale once more, pocket the log, and step back. Perfumed, complicit, and already nostalgic for a launch that will never happen, yet lingers in your lungs like the last slow dance of a prom that forgot to hire music. T-60 minutes. A hush falls over the range that feels like the entire planet inhaling through one straw. Technicians back away from the gantry in slow reverence, boots scraping salt the way monks shuffle parchment. You stand inside the safety line, helmet sealed, visor up so the desert can kiss your cheeks with dusty breath. The rocket looms, patient as a lesson you already regret signing up for. They hand you the button. Well, not the button. Policy decided last week that a single finger on the apocalypse was too cinematic. But a plastic box painted hazard yellow, cord long enough to reach the bunker yet short enough to remind you proximity matters. A red momentary switch grins under a flip cover shaped like a tiny clamshell. Arm on top. Fire below. Someone has scratched a tiny smiley face into the paint, knows a micrometer left of center, as if cuteness could cauterize consequence. You heft the box. It weighs less than your conscience, more than your resume. A voice in your ear, General Brig, velvety and low, says, "Hold till T0, then depress for 3 seconds." Think of it as taking the moon's pulse only backwards. Laughter crackles across the calm net, thin as freeze-dried humor. You picture the real ignition circuit miles away, probably run by a technician with sterner credentials and a mortgage to justify. Still, theater needs its gestures, and you've been cast as the fingertip of history. T-45. They march you to the observation trench, a concrete slit roofed with periscope glass and good intentions. Inside, fluorescent bars flicker like nervous stage lights. Dr. June is already there, visor mirrored, reflecting your helmet like a moon inside a moon. She offers a thumbs up. You return it, though gloves turn the gesture into muffled mittens saying maybe. On the wall, an analog clock does its best to impersonate a heartbeat. Each second hand jumps with a click loud enough to file taxes. You find yourself counting along, breathing in sync, practicing the small death of anticipation. A technician snaps your lanyard to a eye bolt labeled person. Do not remove until world decides. And you realize you're literally tethered to the moment, a dog on a leash made of time. T-30. Loudspeaker switches to private channel lullaby, no more public countdown, just hushed numbers in your headset, intimate as pillow talk. 29, 28. You close the clamshell. The red button now resembles a single sleepy eye. Your thumb hovers, rehearsing pressure without commitment, like a first date holding hands in a horror movie. The rocket vents a puff of vapor, its own anxious sigh. Sunlight ricochets off its skin, stabbing your visor with glare bright enough to sterilize doubt. You think of the moon, still oblivious, cruising through vacuum the way people cross streets in foreign cities, confident, unsuspecting, passport in pocket. Your job is to tap it on the shoulder with something hotter than sunrise. T-10. Someone starts the traditional 10 seconds aloud, voice hushed, almost reverent. Others join, a Gregorian whisper. 9, 8. Your heart double clutches. You feel each beat in your gums. The button feels warmer, though physics insists it's your imagination running a fever. 7, 6. You picture the plastic compressing, the circuit closing, a signal racing wires faster than regret. Miles away, solenoids will click, fuel will meet flame, the moon will acquire a temporary dimple. Or today's preferred outcome. Nothing happens, and history books yawn and turn over. 5, 4. June's hand finds your shoulder, steady as a paperweight holding down the fluttering part of your soul. You wonder if she's offering comfort or bracing for recoil. 3. Thumb descends. Plastic gives with a sigh like a tiny coffin lid closing. 2. You count inside the count, buying milliseconds with Monopoly money. 1. Silence. No roar, no quake, no flash. The rocket stands, patient, probably amused. A test, after all, just a test of will, of wiring, of narrative tension. You release the button, the red eye stares back, unimpressed. Across the net a voice, Briggs, declares, abort stagecraft complete. Stand down. You exhale a breath you've been renting since breakfast. The clock stops. Quiet stretches like taffy. Someone claps, the sound small, unsure whether applause is appropriate for an apocalypse politely declined. You thumb the clamshell closed, gentle as tucking in a child who asked too many questions about death. Later, they'll file today under simulation successful. For now, you remain in the trench, thumb tingling, listening to your pulse slow from cannon to metronome. The moon, somewhere above the concrete slit, continues its orbit, unbruised, possibly smug. You whisper a thank you nobody microphones, unclip your leash, and step into daylight that tastes of diesel and reprieve, an aftertaste you suspect will linger longer than perfume. The loudspeaker exhales a single syllable, abort, and the desert seems to sag with relief, dunes settling like shoulders after a shrug that lasted months. You climb out of the trench, boots heavy with imaginary dust that never got its invitation to fly. The sky above is innocent blue, the color of alibis. Somewhere behind the gantry, technicians pop champagne that fizzes like gossip nobody will print. They hand you a paper cup of something bubbly and cheap. Carbonation tickles your sinuses the way jokes do when laughter is classified. You sip, taste green apples and anticlimax. Dr. June appears, visor up, eyes softer than classified documents left in sunlight. She clinks her cup against yours. To almost, she says. You echo, to almost. And the word feels like a parachute that opened after you were already on the ground, grateful, if slightly confused. General Briggs strides over, mustache bristling with narrative tension seeking a new host. He claps you on the back, lead-lined shoulders clank like distant rail cars coupling. Good work, Nightlight, he says, voice velvet over gravel now lightly strewn with confetti. You pressed when ordered, released when reality intervened. That's the kind of obedience history barely notices. Exactly the point. You nod, unsure whether you've been promoted or parenthesized. Orders arrive before the bubbles flatten, pack instruments, wipe drives, remove all evidence that the moon was ever on our naughty list. They issue you a clipboard-headed post-abort sanitization. Check twice, burn once. Top line. 1. Erase chalk marks from plywood moon. You walk the gantry one last time. The rocket stands unchanged, frost feathers melted into dew, looking like it overslept and missed its own party. A tech applies a sticker reading "Event Cancelled," apologies for any inconvenience across the payload fairing. The smiley face now wears a tiny tear. Down on the flats, cameras are already disassembled, lenses capped with the same red tape that once guarded their virginity. You peel a strip and pocket it, souvenir of restraint. The plywood moon slumps on its berm, papier-mâché craters drooping like disappointed soufflés. You erase the chalk X marking ground zero. White dust sticks to your glove, a ghost that will survive laundry. By noon, the desert looks hungover. Sun harsh, sky empty, trailers already hitched to trucks headed anywhere but here. Generators power down with a sigh that resembles a lullaby running out of batteries. The scent of rocket perfume dissipates, replaced by ordinary heat and the faint vanilla of abandoned plans. You inhale both, tasting the difference between rehearsal and never was. They bus you to a decontamination tent, even though nothing radioactive left the ground. You stand in your underwear while a technician waves a Geiger counter that clicks only when it passes your belt buckle. Cheap metal, guilty conscience. "You're clean," he declares, stamping a form that certifies you officially unglowing. You dress in civilian cotton, suddenly weightless without 32 pounds of lead. Your spine feels tall, guilty of an elongation it didn't earn. Lunch is boxed sandwiches labeled "Almost Heroes," turkey and Swiss. You eat under the wing of a transport plane whose engines already whine impatience. June joins you, feet dangling from the cargo ramp, boots brushing air that smells of jet exhaust and fresh maybe. "So," she says, "how's it feel to be the finger that didn't pull the trigger?" You chew, think, swallow. Like signing a birthday card, then learning the party was cancelled, relieved, but handwriting still on the page. She nods, watches horizon blur into heat shimmer. Paperwork follows. Sign here to confirm you witnessed nothing irreversible. Initial here to promise you'll misremember dates. Stamp here to certify the moon remains unmailed by man-made suns. You comply, each pen stroke a tiny white flag waved at posterity. Last page, a feedback form. Under suggestions for future operations, you write, "Consider leaving the sky alone. Beauty already provided." The clerk glances, smirks, files it without comment. As the bus engines cough, you take a final look around. The desert has already smoothed its wrinkles. Wind fills footprints faster than memories fade. Somewhere above, the moon rides afternoon blue, visibly intact, possibly smirking. You raise 2 fingers, not salute, not wave, something in between, an apology and a thank you addressed to reflected sunlight. The bus rolls, tires hissing like secrets finally allowed to cool. You recline against a window that vibrates with departure, close your eyes, and let the word abort repeat softly until it sounds less like cancellation, more like mercy barely pronounced. Back at base, they give you a paper shredder the size of a hotel mini-bar and a stack of diagrams thick enough to build a spare moon from confetti. The machine waits in a windowless room humming fluorescent lullabies in B-. Above it, a handwritten sign, Feed secrets here. Do not hand-feed regret. You're told to work until nothing remains that could indict the sky. You start with trajectory plots, elegant parabolas that once dreamed of kissing lunar regolith, now reduced to linguini strips curling into a bin labeled to be incinerated, then incinerated again. Each cut feels like snipping the strings of a marionette that never got to perform. The shredder's teeth purr, polite predators dining on vector calculus. Occasionally it hiccups, burping out a decimal point that lands on your sleeve like a tiny monochrome star. Next come yield calculations, tables of overpressure, radiation flux, crater dimensions. You feed them sideways, so the numbers lose their footing mid-destruction, sixes becoming nines, nines becoming spirals of maybe. A graph titled Anticipated Civilian Panic, vs. Latitude folds into the blades with a sigh so human you glance over your shoulder. The blades don't care. They convert panic into spaghetti, latitude into lint. Photographs next, black and white glosses of the plywood moon, the real moon, technicians pointing at both with the solemnity of Boy Scouts considering a frog for sainthood. You hesitate over one image, you in the trench, thumb on the button box, visor reflecting the rocket like a tiny cathedral. For a moment, you consider pocketing it, proof you were almost the period at the end of a very loud sentence. Instead, you slice yourself in half along the helmet line, then quarters, then eighths, until you're small enough to forget. The shredder swallows, burps gratitude. Midnight arrives wearing the scent of warm toner and existential paper cuts. Your bin overflows, so you fetch another labeled recycle, but not too hard. A janitor pokes in, empties the first bin into a burn barrel on a dolly, whistles, "Fly me to the moon" while doing it. Flame already licks upward, turning linguini into black butterflies that dissolve before touching sky. He nods at you, friendly, as if you're colleagues at a bakery disposing of failed soufflés rather than failed sons. You pause to stretch fingers cramped from gripping secrets. On the wall, a clock runs backwards, someone's idea of morale or metaphor. Its hands sweep counterclockwise toward a number that no longer means anything. You watch long enough to feel younger, then return to the pile. Next up, morale reports, psychological evaluations, a memo titled Potential Lunar Emotional Response, if sentient. The last page proposes gifting the moon a therapy goat post-detonation. You shred the goat too. No creatures were harmed, only invented. By 0200, the stack is gone. You run the empty shredder for 30 extra seconds, giving it dessert, air a la mode. It whines, satisfied, then clicks off, leaving a hum in your ears that sounds like distant surf or distant surfs, hard to tell. The burn barrel returns, warm through asbestos gloves. Ash inside resembles grey snow that forgot how to be cold. You stir it with a metal rod, tiny sparks flare, brief constellations, brief confessions, then subside. They issue a final form, certificate of destruction, witnessed and willing. You sign, date, add a footnote no one requested. Nothing was destroyed that wasn't already paper. The clerk initials, files you away. Exit sign buzzes red above the door, spelling way out in letters that look almost surprised to see you leave intact. In the corridor you pass a window. Through it, the real moon hangs low, third quarter, calmly unshredded. You salute with 2 fingers still dusted in toner snow. Paper beats rock, you whisper, but moonlight beats paper, every time. Somewhere behind you the shredder sighs, dreaming of reams it will never taste. Ahead, fluorescent lights hum a lullaby for words that no longer exist, and you walk on, lighter by the weight of almost everything you almost did. The desert afterglow is a color that never made it into crayon boxes, something between bruised peach and forgiven rust, painted across the flats like an apology the sky isn't sure how to word. You walk the empty range at dusk, boots printing temporary history into crust that crunches like burnt meringue. Heat leaks out of the earth. You feel it through your soles, a sigh the planet has been holding since lunchtime. Out here, the silence is so complete it rings. One high, steady note an opera singer might hit before fainting. Your ears invent accompaniment, the soft click of decimeter, quiet now, the memory of generators, the ghost of a countdown that never counted all the way down. You hum a minor third just to keep the vacuum company, notes disappearing faster than you can pay them out, swallowed by alkali and aftermath. Half a mile from camp you find the burn barrel, still warm, exhaling the faintest wisp of paper ghost. You stir the ashes with a length of rebar, grey spirals rise, tiny galaxies that collapse before claiming any sky. Among the soot you spot a stubborn scrap, corner of a graph, maybe the curve that once predicted how bright a fake sun would bloom. One number survives, 0.7. Seconds, kilotons, regrets, who knows? You pocket it, a shard of almost to worry later like a popcorn kernel in moral molars. The moon climbs, late but punctual, lighting salt flats until they look like a lake paused mid-thought. Its light is kinder than floodlights. No buzz, no agenda, just reflected generosity. You stop, breathe it in, taste silver and the faint vanilla of childhood nights when porch lights stayed on until you were safely home. Somewhere inside that glow lives the version of you who never came here, who still believes the moon is made of green cheese and gentle metaphors. You wave. The wave feels like writing "I'm sorry" on water, trusting ripples to do the delivering. Wind picks up, cooler now, carrying diesel ghosts and a whisper of sage. It combs through your hair the way a mother might if mothers were hired to forgive grown children for cosmic misdemeanors. You close your eyes, let it rock you microscopically. In that sway, you sense ozone leftover from morning's fueling, metallic and sharp, a reminder that rocket perfume lingers longer than apologies. You inhale anyway, penance wrapped in coppery air. Hold it, release. Footprints behind you already blur, edges crumbling under gentle erosion. By sunrise, there'll be suggestions. By next week, rumors. You picture future archaeologists, alien or merely later, finding one partial boot heel, inventing an entire civilization that chose not to bomb its satellite. Maybe they'll chalk it up to ritual, to restraint, to a religion centered on reflected light. You hope they also imagine happiness here, not just the absence of explosion. Ahead, the horizon offers nothing but more flatness, more maybe. You consider walking until range lights fade, until the Milky Way feels like ceiling instead of scenery. Common sense taps your shoulder, reminds you of buses, paperwork, tomorrow's debrief, so you stop at the prescribed perimeter fence. Chain link rattles softly, like beads on a door you're not ready to enter. Beyond it, civilian darkness begins, roads, diners, motels where the moon is only a decoration on neon signs. You stay inside a moment longer, letting desert afterglow settle on skin like toner ash that forgot to wash off. Finally, you turn, start the slow walk back. Each step feels lighter, though gravity hasn't changed, only your cargo. Somewhere between barrel and fence, you left a sliver of weight you didn't know you carried, the desire to be noticed by history, to have your signature on a flash that never flashed. Left instead is the smaller wish to be forgotten by harm, to rejoin the ordinary population of stargazers who point without plotting. Overhead, the moon keeps your pace, sliding west, a silent escort home. You glance back once. The flats shimmer, blank again. An apology accepted in advance, written in light you can walk through without leaving a scar. The curved room greets you like a coffee can that's been waiting patiently for its lid. Fluorescents flicker on, revealing walls still wearing the faint ghosts of last week's chalk equations, half-erased parabolas that look like eyebrows raised at unfinished business. On the central table sits a single folder, A119. Final summary, unclassified-ish. Inside, blank pages wait for numbers that no longer exist, because you personally fed their parents to a shredder that now hums in the corner like a cat, full of classified mice. Dr. June is already there, sleeves rolled, hair twisted into a knot that resembles a planetary core. She hands you a stick of chalk so fresh it smells like kindergarten hope. "We need the moon's weight in dust," she says, meaning, calculate how much regardless a 6-kiloton kiss would have lofted had the kiss landed. You approach the board, feel the slate's cool breath on your knuckles, and begin writing variables that feel like conjuring spirits you've already exorcised. First, mass of ejector, M. You script the symbol with ceremonial loops, then pause, remembering yesterday's ash barrel, the scrap that read 0.7, the smell of burnt maybe. You erase, rewrite smaller as if modesty might travel through arithmetic and apologize to the moon by proxy. June watches, says nothing, lets silence tutor you the way only curved walls can, sound bouncing softly back until it resembles conscience wearing slippers. You factor in gravity, 1.62 m/s2, lazy, particle size, 10 microns to 2 mm, polite, velocity distribution, polite but persuasive. Chalk clicks, dust drifts. White snow that never quite reaches the floor before dissolving into fluorescent afterthought. Halfway through, you realize the board is becoming a diary of almost. Every integer a confession, every exponent a sigh. You write 3.8 million cubic meters, underline it, then underline the underline as if emphasis could cauterize uncertainty. Behind you, the shredder burps. You turn. A single comma of paper escapes its teeth, drifts to the floor like a decapitated claws. You stoop, retrieve it. Just a curve, no context. You pocket it beside yesterday's 0.7, building a private constellation of fragments that refused oblivion. June smiles small, as if she too collects punctuation when sentences get death sentences. Back at the board you sketch the plume, a fountain arching into lunar vacuum, silent as mime, graceful as an apology nobody owes. You shade the curtain's edge where sunlight would have caught it, turning dust into brief diamonds. The chalk glides. You realize you're illustrating a fireworks display that will never hire a sky, yet here you are, storyboarding wonder for an audience of absent spectators. You pause, hand cramping. June offers coffee from a thermos that once measured rocket fuel, now domesticated to espresso. Steam curls, smelling of bitterness and second chances. You sip, burn your tongue just enough to remember you're still corporeal, still accountable for lines you draw, even erasable ones. Final step, convert volume to mass using bulk density. The number arrives, 7.2 billion kilograms. You write it, then whisper the figure aloud. 7.2 billion. Hearing how absurdly large it sounds, like counting grains of almost sand on a beach that refused to exist. You imagine each kilogram as a tiny moonlet orbiting the original, a belt of displaced regret. You picture the moon glancing down at its own hypothetical skirt of debris, raising an eyebrow. Nice try, but I prefer jewelry that doesn't self-detonate. You set the chalk down, careful not to let it roll. Some superstitions survive even rationality. The board gleams, a silent epic in dust and mathematics. June photographs it, though the flash is unnecessary. The equations already glow with their own unfinished light. She tears the sheet from her notebook, hands it to you, official documentation of dust that will never rise. You fold it twice, then twice again, until it's small enough to lose, large enough to find later in a coat pocket during some future winter when you need proof that you once chose restraint over spectacle. Lights dim. Lesson ended. The shredder offers a final purr, satisfied that today's blanks have been thoroughly chewed. You step into the corridor, chalk dust on your cuffs like dandruff from a ghost, carrying 7 billion kilograms of nothing across shoulders, suddenly weightless. Behind you, the curved room clicks dark, but the numbers linger, phantom constellations orbiting a center that held, that chose, that never exploded. The hotel balcony at 0300 is a narrow slab of concrete sticking out over the desert, like an afterthought that forgot to apologize. You stand there in socks, boots abandoned inside so the tiles can chill your souls awake. The moon, real, unpaid, unprojected, hangs exactly where it was before budgets and generals tried to rewrite its resume. Third quarter, slightly tilted, as if curious how the story ends when nobody gets exploded. Below, the parking lot yawns, half full of cars that drove all this way to witness nothing. Their windshields reflect the moon in fractured silver, each pane a tiny lake that gave up on ripples. Somewhere on the ground floor, a vending machine hums, Moon River, off-key, dispensing sodas you consider, but abandon. Carbonation feels too celebratory for a night whose main achievement was restraint. You left the sliding door ajar. Carpet light leaks out, painting a yellow trapezoid across your shadow. Inside, the bedside clock glows 307, then 308, numbers advancing with the lethargy of bureaucrats who've discovered time works for them. You're supposed to be asleep. Debrief at 0800, shuttle at 0930, civilian life shortly thereafter. But your eyelids keep scrolling a mental feed of almost suns. The air is cool enough to keep thoughts from spoiling, warm enough to let regret soften at the edges. You breathe in creosote and distant diesel, exhale chalk dust and paper ash that apparently followed you here. Each breath feels like tidying up after a party that never happened, streamers of equations, party favors of yield curves, noisemakers that stayed politely silent. Across the balcony railing, you rest forearms, letting wrists dangle over emptiness the way teenagers dangle secrets. You try to feel the 7.2 billion kilograms of lunar dust that currently exist only in a folded square in your jacket pocket, but scales refuse to balance. Instead, you feel the karma you rescued earlier, tiny paper crescent, pressed like a bookmark between palm and paint. You transfer it to the railing, weightless as punctuation. Below, a tumbleweed the size of a beach ball rolls across asphalt, stops directly under the moon, performs a slow pirouette, then exits stage left. You salute its performance with 2 fingers, acknowledging the universe's understated sense of closure. A lizard clings to the stucco wall nearby, throat pulsing white in sync with your pulse. Both of you cold-blooded, both pretending otherwise. Thoughts arrive unscheduled. The farmer in Kansas, who will never know how close is dusk, came to double exposure. The shepherd in Kazakhstan, whose sheep will keep grazing under an unfractured sky. The child somewhere who will draw the moon wearing a smile instead of a band-aid. You picture them all breathing the same quiet you're breathing, unaware they've been granted an invisible gift. The idea warms slightly, like a coin left in sunlight that finds its way into your palm. You whisper a thing part apology, part thank you, part lullaby for satellites. Stay round, stay kind, stay impossible to own. The moon doesn't answer. Its silence older than every war, every love letter, every government that thought it could improve on reflected light. Yet you feel the sentence land somewhere, maybe in the shallow crater of your own chest, nesting. Behind you the clock flips to 320. Soon, dawn will start its polite paperwork on the eastern ridge, filing forms in triplicate for sunrise. You should move inside, let the curtains do their minimal job, but the balcony holds you the way a bookmark holds a page you aren't ready to finish. You stay, palms chilling, heart rate slowing, letting the night lean closer until you can feel its steadying hand on your shoulder. Eventually, socks lose to concrete. You retreat, sliding the door until only a moon slit remains. You peel back covers, climb in, leave the curtains parted so lunar light can pace the carpet like a night watchman who works for free. Lying there, you realize history isn't written only in flashes and headlines. Sometimes it's written in margins that stayed blank, in buttons left unpushed, in balconies at 3 a.m. where nothing happened, and everything didn't. You close your eyes. The last thing you notice before sleep signs its name is the faint taste of rocket perfume on your own breath, mellow now, almost sweet, an after-dinner mint offered by a missile that learned manners. You breathe it in, breathe it out, let it settle. Somewhere outside, the moon keeps its usual orbit, but tonight you're both a little lighter, a little less at odds, drifting toward dreams that require no detonation. Years later, how many, you've stopped counting. You open a second-hand textbook bought for $3 at a library cull. It's a freshman astronomy primer, spine cracked like old ice, smelling of attic and someone else's highlighters. You're looking for birthday wrapping paper. The universe provides footnotes instead. Mid-flip, a page size open to a grainy photo of the moon's south pole, crater shadows long as childhood winters. There, penciled in the margin beside the caption, Future Exploration Target, are your own initials, clumsy capitals you haven't used since you still spelled secret with 2 E's because it felt safer. You sit. The kitchen chair creaks the way classified doors used to, though this one only protests age and cheap wood glue. Your fingertip hovers over the graphite, half expecting it to smudge under the weight of everything that didn't happen. It doesn't. The initials remain, a fossil pressed between sedimentary paragraphs, older than the kid who probably doodled them during a lecture he thought he'd fail. You try to reverse engineer the moment. Did you borrow this exact copy one forgotten semester? Did the book migrate through dormitories, garage sales, donation bins, until it circled back like a comet with unfinished business? Or is the universe just running low on coincidence and reusing props? You read the facing page. The text discusses lunar regolith displacement mechanisms, natural impacts vs. theoretical anthropogenic events. The phrase is a dry sponge soaking up almosts. You picture the 7.2 billion kilograms of dust that live folded in your memory, now compressed into a single clause between commas. There's no footnote referencing Project A119, no asterisk leading to a bibliography that mentions you, June, a button box painted hazard yellow. Still, you feel sighted the way people feel watched by paintings whose eyes follow them down gallery halls. Your spouse calls from the living room, asking if you found wrapping paper. Found something better, you answer, voice soft enough to skate under further questions. You carry the book to the window where late afternoon light performs its daily magic, turning ordinary dust into slow-motion galaxies. There, you tilt the page until graphite glints. Beneath your initials, fainter, lies a second set, DJ. Dr. June, inked with the same pencil, same semester, maybe same afternoon when both of you pretended astronomy class was the most important orbit you'd ever share. Memory arrives uninvited, the curved room, chalk squeak, her humming Sinatra off-key while slide rules coughed up destiny. You glance at the sky, third quarter moon visible even in daylight, casually innocent. You raise the book in salute. It winks back, page fluttering like a handkerchief someone forgot on a clothesline. You consider shouting across the years, "We left it alone, just like we promised." But the moment feels too fragile for loud noises. Instead you whisper, "Still here," and let the sentence float, trusting vacuum to carry it backward. Down the hall, birthday balloons bob, their glossy surfaces reflecting kitchen leads in moon silver. You realize you'll wrap the gift in newspaper. Comics section, bright colors, no footnotes. This book isn't for cutting. It's for keeping, for placing on a shelf where spines can age into constellations you might decode on some future sleepless night. You close it gently, initials kissing through pages, graphite negotiating longevity. Later, after candles are blown out and the moon has climbed to take its shift above rooftops, you return to the primer. You add a faint pencil mark of your own. Today's date, small, humble, an echo answering an echo. Then you slide it between a cookbook and a travel guide. Neighbors who will never guess they're guarding a classified secret older than marriage, mortgages, or the calm you now wear like broken in denim. Upstairs, you brush teeth, spit tap water that tastes only of chlorine and bedtime, no aftertaste of rocket perfume. You spit again anyway, just in case memory hides in foam. In bed, you listen to the house settle, pipes ticking like distant Geiger counters that lost their job. Outside, the moon keeps its usual orbit, but tonight you share a quiet reference only you can footnote, initials in a margin, 2 sets, proof that once upon a time you and someone else chose blank pages over flashbulbs. You fall asleep counting backward from nothing, comforted by a bibliography that ends before it begins. In the dream rehearsal, the rocket always launches in slow motion, so slow you could butter toast between frame cuts and still have time to apologize to the cow. The gantry peels away like stage curtains made of spider silk. The missile rises on a column of silent flame, a candle held by a sky that forgot to wish. You stand in the observation trench, but the trench is now a front-row orchestra seat upholstered in moonlight, program notes printed on napkins you once folded into paper airplanes. The countdown voice is your third-grade teacher, Mrs. Applebaum, who could make the alphabet sound like federal law. She recites, 10, 9, 8. And each number lands on a music stand, becomes a note you never learned to read. By 0, the rocket is only knee-high above the rail, yet nobody panics. The audience accepts that history prefers adagio. You wave, polite, as if seeing off a neighbor's questionable vacation plans, then return to buttering imaginary toast, comforted by the delay. Flame color shifts from orange to cathedral-stained glass, finally to a soft bedroom lamp glow that wouldn't scare a moth. It warms your face like a memory of summer campfires, the kind where marshmallows achieved minor burns and no one filed incident reports. The rocket climbs, inch by inch, and you realize the moon is reclining on an invisible chaise longue, fanning itself, amused by the effort. It winks, literally winks, creating a tidal hiccup you feel in your socks. Stage left. Dr. June appears in prom dress made of star charts, corsage a tiny decimeter that clicks like castanets. She offers popcorn. You accept. It tastes of chalk dust and bargain champagne, the flavor of celebrations that never quite pressurize. Together you watch the missile reach mid-stratosphere, still moving frame by frame, a slideshow narrated by distant meadowlarks. Halfway to space, the rocket pauses, mid-air, like a comma deciding whether to become a semicolon. A technician walks on stage with a ladder, adjusts a fin, walks off. No one boos, this is rehearsal after all. You check your program, Act 2, Scene 3, optional explosion may be cut for time. A producer's note scribbled in margin. Consider quieter ending, perhaps handshake. You nod approval. The moon gives thumbs up from chaise long. Eventually the rocket tips over, gentle as a waiter pouring champagne into a glass that prefers not to shatter. It kisses the lunar surface with the softness of a parent smoothing a child's hair at 3 a.m. during thunder. No flash, no crater, only a ripple of dust that behaves like polite applause, settling before it offends. The moon sighs, content, and the sound is exactly the hush of library books closing in unison. Curtain falls, not with a swoop, but with the slow descent of bedroom curtains at the end of a day that decided against tragedy. Audience of crickets chirps approval. Fireflies take encore bows. You stand, realize you're the only spectator left, yet seats remain indented with the weight of everyone who almost came. House lights, stars brighten gradually. Mrs. Applebaum reappears, hands you a gold star sticker. Good job not blowing things up, she says. You stick it on your heart where it glows through pajama fabric. Morning sneaks in, slips gold leaf across your real eyelids. You wake, the scent of imaginary toast still lingering, popcorn salt on unseen lips. Over actual rooftops, the moon is setting, third quarter, unconcerned. You raise 2 fingers, salute its unbruised cheek, whisper, break a leg, just not the sky. It slides away, taking curtain calls behind hills, leaving you with a gold star pulsing softly against your pulse, proof the show can go on without detonation. You're back in the curved room, though back is a floppy word when dreams have been folding time like laundry. The overhead bulb is gone, replaced by a single slide projector that hums like a bee practicing confidential information. Light hits the wall, a 35 mm color transparency labeled Lunar Event Simulation, frame 12, though you remember snapping only 11. The 12th slide shows the moon wearing sunglasses, reflection in the lenses depicting a mushroom cloud the size of a polite cough. You reach to eject it. The projector purrs, refuses. Instead it offers a new image, you, older, standing in a suburban driveway, holding a flat white box. Caption across the bottom, souvenir, do not open until nostalgia. Your dream self-obeys, lifting the lid. Inside, a perfect sphere of moondust the size of a baseball, sealed in acrylic, weightless as forgotten promises. A tiny card, authentic regardless, would have been 7.2 billion kg, but we left the rest where it belonged. Behind you, the room applauds, softly, like moths clapping. You turn. Audience of folding chairs, all empty except one, Dr. June, hair now silver as launchpad frost, sipping coffee from a mug shaped like a mushroom cloud wearing a party hat. She nods toward the sphere. Nice souvenir, she says. Portable, ethical, zero fallout. You almost laugh, but the dust inside the sphere begins to levitate, slow motion fountain obeying lunar physics even in suburbia. Grains orbit your head, gentle as dandruff from a very old star. Projector clicks. New slide, the hotel balcony at 3 a.m. Only the moon is missing, replaced by a hole ragged as torn construction paper. Caption, negative space, handle with care. You feel around your pockets, find the paper comma from the burn barrel, the 0.7 fragment, the folded equations. You place them into the hole, they fit perfectly, like puzzle pieces time had been saving. The moon reappears, restored, maybe grateful. Audience of moths give standing ovation, wings whispering across drywall. Click again, the textbook margin now life-sized. Your initials glow, penciled neon, pulsing Morse for still here. June's initials blink back, answering, same. Between you, blank space where the explosion would have been. An aisle nobody walks down. A pause music obeys. You step into the margin, it widens into a corridor of white paper that smells of old libraries and future forgiveness. Footprints appear behind you, chalk dust, not boot prints, each one a cancelled countdown. At the far end, a door marked exit, but only if you mean IT. You open it onto a beach at night, tide applauding against sand in perfect slow-motion synchronization with the projector's hum. Waves carry small white cones, paper party hats shaped like no-scones, each one dissolving before it can crash. You collect one anyway, pocket it beside the gold star from Mrs. Applebaum. Souvenirs are accumulating, star, comma, hat, promise. They weigh nothing, yet tug like gentle gravity. June appears beside you, offers a final slide, completely transparent, imageless. For whatever you want to remember, she says. You hold it to the moonlight, it catches nothing but reflection, your face, older, softer, framed by night instead of fire. You slip it into the box with the acrylic dust. The lid closes without sound, snaps shut like a mouth that has finished telling its story. Projector powers down, hum lowering into lullaby key. The curved room dims until only moonlight remains real, reflected off the actual sea outside the actual window of your actual motel room, where you wake, third quarter moon hanging low enough to skim tide. On the nightstand, the flat white box, lid slightly ajar. Inside, nothing but moonlight and the faint scent of kindergarten chalk. You close it, smile, whisper, thank you to no projector in particular, and fall back asleep, lighter by the weight of one souvenir that contains everything you chose not to take. The last real duty is a 300-word wind down delivered in person to a chair that outranks you. General Briggs sits behind a desk the size of a decommissioned continent, hands folded like a paper airplane that never learned to fly. He slides a single sheet forward. Post-participation statement. Keep it simple. Keep it sleepy. The instructions whisper, tell us, in calm history tones, where you'll store the noise now that the bang has been politely declined. You write, I will keep the flash in the fold between heartbeats, where time keeps a night light for seconds that are afraid of the dark. I will store the countdown in a lullaby for a child I haven't met. 10, 9, 8, stretched so long she'll fall asleep before the world remembers to end. I will file the mushroom cloud under clouds that look like other things and teach future picnics to spot bunnies, never booms. I will pour the rocket perfume into a tiny bottle labeled Tuesday, if asked, and open it only on balconies at 3 a.m. when the moon needs reminding it was left unbruised. I will fold the 7.2 billion kilograms into origami cranes and let them orbit a lampshade until dust forgets it ever wanted to be sky. I will sign off with initials that stay penciled, erasable, polite. No capitals, no shout, just the lowercase hush of someone who learned the sound of almost and liked it better than applause. You slide the statement back. Brig reads, nods once, an economy of approval that feels like a lullaby sung through a filing cabinet. He offers his hand. You shake it, gloveless now, skin meeting skin the way peace treaties must when no one's watching. Outside, the tarmac is warm butter under sunset. You board a staff bus that might as well be a regular bus. Windows tint the world the color of calm history. Seat reclines. You recline. Engine hum begins its own slow count. 10 hours to base, 10 years to forget, 10 decades until your margin notes become footnotes someone else decides to believe. You close your eyes. Each breath is slower. The night leans closer. Stars gather overhead like editors agreeing the final draft reads better without explosions. There is nothing left to do tonight except let the moon keep its usual shift. Let tires hum you toward whatever ordinary morning waits beyond the last checkpoint. You are safe. There's nothing left to sign. No red buttons glowing under clamshells. No chalk dust settling on moons that refused our edits. The bus rolls. In the window, your reflection rides shotgun, older, softer, carrying a small white box of moonlight on its lap. You smile at it. It smiles back. Both of you quietly footnoted in a history that chose blank pages over flashbulbs. Somewhere behind, the curved room darkens. The shredder dreams of unborn memos, and the desert rewrites itself nightly until even footprints become polite rumors. You fall asleep to the gentlest countdown of all, the sound of distance increasing between what almost happened and what never will. The bus exhales a diesel sigh and rolls to a stop outside the last checkpoint, an orange barrel gate that looks more like a highway toll booth than the edge of almost Armageddon. You step down, duffel lighter than when you arrived. 32 pounds of lead now replaced by one folded sheet of calm history and the white souvenir box that weighs exactly what moonlight should. Dawn is a rumor in the east, a thin salmon stripe that tastes of diner coffee you haven't drunk yet. A single taxi waits, driver humming something that might be Blue Moon, or might be the engine cooling, hard to tell at this hour. You climb in, he nods at the box on your lap, says, "Souvenir." You answer, "Sort of," which in government dialect means yes, no, and please don't ask twice. He shrugs, pulls onto the highway, tires whispering like pages turning themselves shut. Road signs count down to civilian airspace. 30 miles, 2010. Each number feels like a lullaby verse. Backward, gentle, uninterested in climax. You rest forehead against cool glass. Outside, desert gives way to scrub to gas stations glowing vacancy in soft neon pastels. The colors look apologized for, as if they know they once advertised a flash that never flashed. At the airport curb, the driver lifts your bag, hands you a receipt smudged with kindness and diesel. You tip him the last of the per diem coins. They clink like tiny bells ringing in a cathedral you've officially left. Inside the terminal, CNN flickers muted. Headlines about trade deals, weather, a celebrity divorce. No mention of lunar standoffs, no crawl line for almost bombs. You buy coffee that tastes ordinary, which tastes perfect. Gate B12 chairs are mostly empty. The few passengers doze, heads bobbing to private countdowns of boarding zones and connecting flights. You sit, place the white box on your knees like a cat that refuses to purr. Overhead, wide windows frame the real sky, third-quarter moon pale but punctual, sliding between departing tails of red-eye jets. You nod. It nods, ongoing. Boarding call murmurs. You join the queue, ticket app glowing soft blue, no red buttons here. Just a QR code that beeps politely and lets you pass. Jetway smells of kerosene and dawn, a perfume you now recognize as the opening note of every future departure. You inhale, exhale, leave a small offering of almost breath on the metal railing. Inside the cabin, lights are dimmed for sunrise service. Passengers yawn in unison, a choir practicing the key of starting over. You find seat 14A, window of course, and buckle up, surprised how little gravity it takes to keep you grounded these days. The safety card illustrates exits, flotation devices, oxygen masks. Nowhere does it mention what to do if the moon falls in love with you and follows. You tuck the white box under the seat ahead, careful, like storing a night light for the aisle. Push back, the floor trembles, a small reminder that motion is possible without mushroom clouds. Taxi, takeoff, wheels tuck in with a sigh that sounds like there. City lights shrink to constellations more orderly than the real ones. You watch until they blur into dawn's growing confidence. At cruising altitude, the captain turns off the seat belt sign. You obey the gentle chime, close eyes. Let turbine hum become the new lullaby baseline. In your pocket, the folded calm history sheet crinkles, a permission slip for ordinary time. You picture unfolding it mid-flight, reading the words to clouds, then refolding smaller, until it fits inside a heartbeat and stays. You don't. Some documents are safer as texture than text. Somewhere over the Midwest, you fall asleep to the soft percussion of beverage carts and muted sunrise. You dream of runways that end in libraries, of boarding passes stamped destination, whenever. No countdowns interrupt. The turbines count forward now, steady as metronomes set to survival. When you wake, the moon is still visible through the window, smaller, farther, yet riding the same blue you left. You raise the plastic cup of airline water in silent toast, to onward, to seats that recline just enough to let the past lean back without lying down completely. The plane hums, clouds scroll, and history, calm, unclassified, continues somewhere beneath the wing, neither footnote nor headline, just the quiet sound of distance doing what distance does best, letting everyone breathe. Years compress into commuter miles. The white box migrates to a bookshelf between a travel guide and a cookbook that still thinks soufflés are achievable. Its lid yellows like old library cards, but inside, each time you check, remains only moonlight and the faint scent of kindergarten chalk. The folded calm history sheet graduates to a dresser drawer beneath socks you forget to pair, creases softening into fabric memory. Some nights you unfold it, read the hush aloud to an empty room, refold smaller, until it sleeps beneath your pulse. The moon, meanwhile, keeps its appointment every 29.5 days, sliding past your bedroom window like a neighbor who walks his dog at exactly 10. You nod. He nods, ongoing, unpunctuated. No billboard mentions the flash that never flashed. No textbook, save that one primer footnotes the day the sky was penciled, then gently erased. Historians file it under proposals abandoned, right next to weaponized hurricanes and pigeons paid to pilot missiles. Ideas that lived just long enough to rent space in a filing cabinet before shredders digested the lease. You grow older, softer, the way margins yellow rather than tear. Kids yours, then theirs draw the moon wearing smiles, sometimes sneakers, never band-aids. You offer no corrections. Some stories are safer as crayon. When they ask why Grandpa always pauses when lunar light crosses the kitchen floor, you say, counting seconds, old habit, and ruffle hair that smells of shampoo and unburned futures. Occasionally, at 3 a.m., you visit the balcony of a Motel 6 or a Marriott. Any railing will do. Watch third quarter light lean across parking lots like a secret that knows it's safe. You breathe in diesel ghosts, exhale chalk dust that still refuses to be mushroom-shaped. The moon glides on, cratered, patient, the way libraries wait for late returns. You salute with 2 fingers. It reflects the gesture, unchanged, unindicted. One winter you return to the desert, not for closure, just for miles on a road trip aimed at nowhere particular. The proving ground is a fenceless expanse again, salt flats glittering under snow that forgot to be cold. No gantry, no plywood moon, only wind rewriting dunes the way sensors redact regret. You pocket a shard of alkali, white as unwritten paper, slip it into the white box back home, an update, a postscript, a whisper that says, "Still here, still quiet." Doctors later measure blood pressure, cholesterol, the usual arithmetic of aging. No device records the softer metrics, grams of guilt shed, milliliters of almost distilled into grace. You keep those in the dresser drawer beneath single socks, beside the calm history sheet now feather thin. Every so often you add a new fragment, ticket stub, boarding pass, a karma-shaped fleck from an old burn barrel. They rest together, a private constellation orbiting nothing, weightless as mercy. One night, very late, you open the box under direct moonlight. The alkali shard catches the beam, throws it back as powdered starlight. For an instant the room fills with silent fountain dust, slow motion ballet you can walk through without leaving prints. You breathe it in. No taste, only temperature, the cool side of pillows, the hush after lullabies, the moment before applause decides against itself. You close the lid, return the box to its shelf. In bed, heartbeat slows to the cadence of distant turbines, forward counting now, steady as librarians closing up. Outside, the moon continues its monthly edit, removing shadows, adding silver, never once demanding credit. You fall asleep counting nothing, certain of at least one sky that will remain unbruised when morning files its report. And that is where we leave you, breath easing, night leaning closer, stars overhead gathering like editors who agree the final draft reads better without explosions. There is nothing left to do tonight. You are safe, forgiven in advance, footnoted in pencil that time will gently fade but never fully erase. Each breath is slower now, the night leans closer, tucking the last corner of daylight under the horizon. Feel the mattress soften, accepting your weight the way the desert finally accepted footprints, gently, then completely. The room dims, curtains breathe, releasing pale moonlight that paces the carpet like a quiet watchman who works for tips of silence. Let your shoulders drop, first one, then the other, 2 small moons settling into orbit around the idea of rest. Somewhere in the dresser drawer, a folded sheet keeps the hush you chose. It glows faintly, counting nothing, asking nothing. The white box on the shelf hums with stored moonlight. Its lid is closed, its stories asleep, dreaming only of reflected light. Breathe in, cool air, tasting faintly of chalk and distant sage. Exhale, warmth, letting the last ounces of maybe leave your lungs. Stars gather overhead like editors agreeing the final draft reads better without explosions. They file the night under, approved for release. There is nothing left to sign. No red buttons glowing under clamshells, no countdowns ticking inside rib cages. Only the soft percussion of your own pulse, steady as a librarian closing up. Let it slow. Let the curtain still. Let the moon continue its monthly edit, removing shadows, adding silver, while you sink page by page into the margin that stayed blessedly blank. You are safe, forgiven in advance, footnoted in pencil that time will fade but never fully erase. So before the next exhale finishes, let sleep press its gold star to your heart, dim the lights behind your eyelids, and close the story with the gentlest sound of all, distance, breathing. Sweet dreams.